Now I'm gonna get my base layer down on this severely grumpy looking fish, but he's the one that kind of changes from like a blue purple to more of a purple purple to a pinky to an orangey and then to a yellow in the back. So you could just let it go from yellow into the, or from yellow into the purple into the blue. But if you don't get those middle colors in through there where that yellow and the purple mix, it's gonna make this lovely like brown color. So we don't want that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my yellow on first, and I've pre-mixed all of, or I've gotten these ready. I have my alizarin crimson, my cadmium free red, and my lemon yellow, and then the ultramarine blue and my dioxazine purple. So that's what I have ready. I might not use very much of them because honestly this fish isn't that big, but that's a lot of color things happening. So I'm gonna start with my lightest color because I want it to show no matter what. And I'm gonna add this yellow in, kind of like we did on the first original fish. And then I'm gonna see, I think that yellow goes up to about right here. I'm not gonna make like a hard line, but I'm gonna add that yellow in. Whoa, that's really bright. That's a lot brighter than I want it to be, but whatever, it's fine. We'll make it work. And I'm gonna add a little bit up on the fins over here as well, so I don't have to do that later. And down here, I'm gonna leave a little bit of that border there so we can have some kind of separation. And I'm gonna re-wet this. And before I go any farther, I'm gonna rinse my brush out. And since that's a little bit lighter than I want it to be, I'm just gonna pull some of that color. Just a little. I'm gonna leave it darker towards the edges or towards the inside so that it can blend with that cad-free red. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my cad-free red and I'm gonna mix it with my yellow up on top here so that I don't just go straight from yellow to the red. And before I pull any yellow into that, I had to rinse it off so I don't cross-contaminate. So there's a little bit more of a goldeny orange. So I'm gonna add that in here just on the edges, and it's gonna bleed. It's gonna wanna move, and that's fine. I'm gonna let it because I want that to happen. So I'm gonna put that on there. I'm gonna do a tiny bit more just around the edge down here just to show that like that bottom side is a little bit darker, and we might have to go back and do some detailing kind of like we did with the yellowfish. But I'm gonna go from there, go get that cad red and put it just a touch on the outside here. Same up top, and then a tiny bit down below. From there, I'm gonna kind of let that dry for just a little bit, and then I'm gonna head to my other side of the fish and just get where I want most of the ultramarine blue to show that little bit of highlight. He has some on the underneath side of his eye, has a little bit up here, and then some through these up here. And then a little bit on his underside fin. If you wanted to go crazy and add even the phthalo blue into it, you totally could. We can make that a little bit brighter if we wanted to. Give it some of this. He looks real jacked right now, but we'll fix him up here in a second. I'm also gonna add a little bit underneath here. So I don't wanna let that blue mix with the orange because it's gonna make brown. So I need the purple and the pink in between. I wanted to give this just a little bit of time to set, and I might even give it just a little of time more. But I'm gonna put this alizarin crimson. So you can choose what you wanna do. If you wanna let that dry a little bit more, you might have a hard edge around the orange part before you get to your alizarin crimson, but that might be good. I'm gonna go for it and see what it does when I mix, because that's part of the fun of watercolor, is figuring out how these things mix together. I'm gonna lay it on here so I can get parts of it just the alizarin crimson. Whoop. But then as soon as I touch those border edges, it's gonna run. So touch that up through there. Doing this other part first meant that it's going to leave some of that crimson in there. Now I can tell that my crimson's a little bit darker than I want it to be. So I rinsed out my brush, patted it down on my paper towel, and I'm gonna, with my dry, thirsty brush now, I'm gonna lift that up. It's still gonna blend. I just wanna take some of the pink out. So hopefully I didn't take too much of the orange out, so we can let it blend through there. If in a minute or two I feel like it's not blending, I can adjust that, or I can go through and tilt. I can lift that up, tilt it back downward, tilt it back this way, kind of get some of that pigment to run together. and see what it does on its own. So that's a little bit better of a mix. I'm gonna dive in with my purple. And again, this is just our first application. We don't wanna, and the top of the fish is gonna have a highlight, so we don't wanna get too dark in there. Oh good, that's a good that's a lighter purple. Sometimes I never know how much pigment I put on there until I go to put it on my page, and then it's either perfect or very bad, and there's very little in between. Now I'm gonna work on the bottom over here. I'm not quite gonna let it touch that pink yet because I want it to, oh, just kidding. So I've made an oops. I've let this water come through here and it's gonna blend up that way, unless I take another dry brush and go, I'm gonna fix you. I'm gonna dry up this dam of water right here. And if I dry up this edge, then I can take all this brown part and suck that back up with the bristles. It's like a little vacuum cleaner. Rinse it, go again. And if you don't like these edges, you can go over those edges and feather it out, kind of. Just like we talked about with the feather and lift. So since that's all kind of contaminated, I'm gonna spread it out a little bit. She's gonna be a little bit more of an earthy tone purple. That's what that yellow does to it. It makes it a little bit more brown. I don't hate it though. I did need it to stop, but I don't hate it. All right, I'm gonna add this back in here, get a little bit more purple going on. Hopefully not rehydrate that yellow and orange too much. Oh, and give him more of that fin down here. Go a little bit through up the top. Now, some people are a little bit more loosey-goosey. They would just let it go and say, it's whatever, let's see what happens. I have a little bit more problem with that. And don't forget, he's not done yet, or she, or whatever. It's not done yet. We're just getting that first layer in there, and I'm gonna get a little bit more of this alizarin crimson and put it over here towards this border so that we have a little bit nicer of a mix. And then I'm gonna go back and get just a little bit more of this purple because I really like this bright purple color that he has through here, and add it on the underneath side over here. And with that, I'm gonna let that part dry so I don't mess it up anymore.